All right, it's finally here. So we've talked about this for a couple of months now. I think probably 4 or 5 months at this point. What we would do if/when we did see ICP come below $5. I know there was a lot of us speculating that maybe it would never even get below $5 again. But here we are. It is back below $5. Obviously, from the glass half empty approach. Definitely not the most ideal thing, especially after kind of the really nice run up that we saw towards the end of 2024. But of course, this is where we are. And so from the glass half full approach, the way I look at this is another great opportunity to DCA and get some really, really cheap ICP. Again, if you do believe in the project, I personally believe very, very strongly in the project. So I, of course, am looking for a great opportunity to potentially start buying more. Trying to figure out, if I want to start buying more now or if I want to continue to wait and see if we can kind of start to maybe reverse the trend. We'll go into the chart. We'll talk about that a little bit here in a second. But mainly, essentially what we're looking for is when is the best time to buy ICP, right? I mean, if you are looking to buy ICP, of course, for probably the past several months, I obviously have the ICP that I've had in my bag for a while now, but I haven't really bought anything else, even though we have seen some pretty good prices, just because we haven't seen the trend break. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. We're also seeing some pretty interesting news coming out of like the let me figure out. It's the CVE records, which is the common vulnerabilities and exposures. So we'll talk about that here in a second as well. But starting off, let's go take a look at the crypto bubbles. All right, so as we can see, we actually do have a green day going on here. A couple of different things pumping pretty nicely. Hyperliquid Curve, ZEC, Fartcoin, XCN, Jasmy, Render, kind of being the big winners here. We are seeing ETH continue to bleed. It seems like this one just won't stop. IP also, bleeding a little bit here, and then Tezos and EOS also kind of some of the bigger losers. We do also see that, Solana's barely down kind of up here. We are seeing ICP down only 0.6%, basically not moving a whole lot. Again, we'll be looking at the price chart here shortly, but we'll see really not a whole lot of volatility coming out of ICP recently. I think there's a lot of reasons for this, which we will also cover. We can also see Bitcoin down about 1.3% on the day. We will stop and take a quick look at the Bitcoin chart before we go into ICP, just so we can get a kind of a general sense of the volatility we're seeing out of Bitcoin. Obviously, US equities and the stock market has seen a ton of volatility over the past several days. Bitcoin relatively has seen a decent bit of volatility, not really too much compared to what we've seen kind of prior in previous, I guess we should say, cycles. Usually we've seen crypto and Bitcoin specifically trade as like a higher beta tech stock. So if tech stocks go up 5%, Bitcoin goes up 10. If tech stocks go down 5%, Bitcoin goes down 10. We've kind of seen almost the opposite of that, it being a low beta tech stock, if even not trading like a tech stock at all recently, which is kind of interesting. If we do look here, obviously still not breaking above this trend line. We can see kind of the main point here being a pretty decent bit of volatility going on. Now, if we go over and we take a look at ICP, we're going to see basically exactly the opposite. Obviously, still a very, very strong downtrend that we have not broken yet. We are actually closer to the top of the downtrend here. If we do kind of zoom out a little bit, we can see kind of the trend we're seeing, getting very, very close to trying to break this descending trend line. If we do go back down to this lower trend line, things could get pretty rough. I mean, we can see here, down even below $3 potentially could be the bottom of this trend line. Now, again, maybe if we want to kind of take something a little bit more short term, we could draw a more shallow slope and see something kind of like this. This I do also think would be valid. This is just kind of a maybe better line of best fit over a longer period of time. So I think there are kind of two ways in which we could be looking at this. This is kind of more of like a descending wedge. This is more of a, I guess, descending wedge technically, but I would call this just more of like a descending channel. So a lot of what we're needing to see is kind of a breakout back above this channel, as well as above this level of support, which we had held very, very strongly for a long period of time. Obviously, we have broken below that, and we've actually been rejected a couple times trying to get back above. So we're kind of facing a little bit of a double whammy here. We've got this trend line. Let's actually just zoom in a little bit closer. So we can focus on exactly what we're talking about. We can see here this trend line right here. Let's actually get some drawing out. So we've got this trend line right here, and then we also have this level of resistance. Kind of a double whammy, as you can see. If we were to break through this, we'd immediately run right back into this one. So that's obviously going to be a bit of an issue. What we're probably going to see is a little bit of kind of following this trend line, maybe break out, break above it, kind of go here, hold along this level of resistance, maybe come down, do a break, retest, break again. That's probably, if I had to guess, kind of the best case scenario of what we'd want to see here. We can get rid of some of this stuff just to kind of clean up the chart a little bit, but that's kind of what we're looking at here in the short term. Obviously, RSI consistently below kind of average here, dipping into oversold at several different points here, and really never really getting too far above neutral. We did see a little bit of a break here when we got up towards the top of the Bollinger Band, as well as coming up against this line of resistance again. Then we also saw a super tiny peak here when we kind of saw that like kind of a pump fake day when it was surrounding about tariffs. So tariffs are happening, tariffs aren't happening, they're going to be this, they're going to be that, all that other type of stuff. But as you can see, definitely very, very weak on the RSI. And then obviously Bollinger Bands too, squeezing and doing a little bit here and there, but consistently going towards the bottom of the Bollinger Bands, even as the Bollinger Bands are kind of slanted downwards. So definitely some rough price action from ICP over the past several months. I don't think this is a secret to anybody. Of course, we are back below that $5 range. Could potentially be a good place to pick some more up. Again, we have not seen this level basically since back in 2023. So again, a lot of us were talking about, what would we do if we saw a sub $5 ICP? Well, now is the time for you to decide. Obviously, this is not financial advice, so you need to make your own decisions. Nothing that I say is should be taken as financial advice. These are all just my opinions. I could very much be wrong. Obviously, if we look at history for ICP price, it is not done particularly well, right? So I would not say that the facts when it comes to price are on our side when it comes to ICP. However, if we go look at kind of a lot of the fundamental metrics, some of the news, a lot of the developments, things like that coming from ICP, I do remain bullish. Again, I could be wrong, very, very highly likely or possible that I am wrong, but I still just think that, the tech is worthwhile and that people will eventually catch on. Here we can see kind of, the macro low of the bear market coming down here at about just below $3, kind of high twos. So there is always the possibility that maybe we get back down here. Again, really, really hard to say for sure. But of course, we saw a really, really nice run up in early 2024, really strong pullback, and then a kind of a little bit of a smaller run up here. So, again, we'll have to see kind of how price unfolds. But so far, price action, kind of per usual, not looking particularly great for ICP. However, if you are looking to kind of, DCA into your bags, double down on some of your positions, even anything like that, I do have that link in the description below for BTCC as well as Phemex and WEEX. Really, really great bonuses kind of all throughout. BTCC is doing a 10% deposit bonus. Phemex is doing, I think, about $4,800. BTCC is actually doing also $10,000 in trading bonuses and whatnot. And then WEEX, I believe, has up to 30,000 USDT in trading bonuses as well. So lots of options there if you are interested in any of those. Really great ways to trade ICP, both spot and leverage, if you are looking to do either of those. So moving on, I want to talk a little bit about the news of the day here, talking about ICP and getting involved with the vulnerability data enrichment for CVE records. Again, as we said earlier on in the video, CVE is common vulnerability and exposures. This is essentially a system that provides reference essentially for like known information security vulnerabilities and exposures. We can see that the Dfinity Foundation was added to this. So pretty interesting news here. Obviously, cybersecurity is becoming an increasingly large as well as expensive industry. Some of these hacks are getting more and more elaborate and more intricate, a lot of things like that. And so I think Dfinity being added to this is a little bit of a feather in their hat. I wouldn't say that this is any sort of groundbreaking thing going on. Obviously, they are in pretty good company here with, a bunch of really, really, high-powered companies in here. Amazon, Netflix, Nvidia, a lot of kind of the Magnificent Seven here in the US. You can see Google as well. Those are all basically part of the Magnificent Seven. So pretty good stuff to see here. Obviously, ICP is the only blockchain on this list, which is interesting. But we can I think this makes sense, right? Because it's been very clear to any of us who have been following ICP for an extended period of time. Cybersecurity is something that they kind of tout as one of the many options that is a source of benefit for ICP. So obviously, they've got various things where, you can see, or they do AI and they do on-chain data storage and on-chain compute and on-chain cloud. On-chain kind of, or cybersecurity kind of loops into all of this, because since everything is on-chain, and of course these cybersecurity issues are becoming more intricate, more elaborate, and more expensive than they ever have been before. Obviously, we saw that with the Bybit hack, over $1.5 billion stolen there, and some of that was because there's a little bit of like some inserting of some malware, or like a fake UI, I guess you could call it, kind of between the blockchain itself as well as kind of like the Web 2 interface layer. If you have something like ICP where it's hosted directly on the cloud, or on the blockchain, you don't really run into that problem, because there's nothing to insert in between. It's just all on the blockchain. So something that I am interested to see, like it's a very unique play that I think a lot of people may see the value in the future, but it's a little bit more kind of nuanced and techie. I'm not sure if that's going to be something that people buy into the narrative. And of course, for something to move kind of outside of a narrative, we need to see really, really strong product market fit and adoption, and a lot of that type of stuff. So I am interested in kind of looking closely to see how people are adopting. Are they adopting it? Do they find it useful? Do they find it useful enough to prevent some of these possible hacks? A lot of this type of stuff. So that's the main thing that I'm taking a look at here as we kind of look through how Dfinity kind of angles themselves or maneuvers themselves on this whole kind of cybersecurity type of narrative. So we'll have to see how that goes. I do think more and more things kind of like, unfortunately, this is kind of a little bit of an unfortunate thing to say, but the more Bybit type things that happen, likely the more valuable this type of proposition gets. So that's one thing that we'll kind of have to keep an eye out for and look into. Now, the last thing that I want to take a look at here when we're discussing ICP price, what we could see in 2025 and a lot of that type of stuff really kind of centers around what is the purpose of alts, or what is the future prospects of alts in 2025. And so if we look here at the alt season index, we can see definitely still firmly in Bitcoin season. We've been in Bitcoin season basically since like the beginning of March, obviously trending down away from alt season. We saw a little bit of a kind of a peak up into alt season. Even I think this was just for like a handful of days. Yeah, it was like a week, if even that. And then we come we went right back in and right back out, and we've been trending back towards Bitcoin season ever since. Obviously, we saw a fair bit of time in Bitcoin season here. So maybe there's the possibility that we, bounce around for a couple more weeks and then start to move back up and see a run out of alts. Really hard to know for sure. Obviously, this market is very, very different than what we were seeing in 2024. There's so much uncertainty within the market. Obviously, markets hate uncertainty more than anything. So I think as we start to see some of this tariff uncertainty and some of those types of things start to kind of taper off, and we kind of get a little bit more clear of what's going on, even if we're heading into a recession. I think that's better than not knowing it at all, just because people know how to maneuver and how to plan. So one of the main things that I'm going to be looking for over the next several weeks is how do the markets start to digest this uncertainty as it becomes more known and more certain? Can we get past some of this stuff, or are we going to continue to play this will they, won't they? Tariffs are on, tariffs are off, tariffs are paused, tariffs are back resumed. A lot of this stuff is really not very healthy, or I guess I shouldn't say healthy, but it's not really good for the markets in terms of stable price movement, which is why we've seen multi-thousand point swings in the Dow Jones and all this type of stuff over within individual days, which is highly, highly unusual. So there's a lot of things going on. I'm sure many of you have probably seen the headlines, but it's trillions being created, trillions being erased, all within the span of a day or two and a tweet or two, which is pretty crazy. But overall, kind of bringing this back to crypto and to Bitcoin and all that type of stuff, realistically, I would say we should not expect anything out of altcoins until we see something coming back out of Bitcoin. So if we go back and we take a look at the Bitcoin chart here, we can see obviously still working through and not being able to break this descending trend line. This has been the case for several months now. The first thing that we need to see is we need to see this actually come back, see a breakthrough here, ideally get back into this range, and ideally even above that, break above kind of these all-time highs into new all-time highs, and start to see a little bit of a run from there. Until then, I don't think we're going to see anything from altcoins just because there's too much uncertainty within the wider market. I think that certainty will become clearer, that will impact markets, then that will impact Bitcoin, and then of course that will go into smaller alts and things like that as we continue along. So in my mind, I'm not really looking to do anything too crazy in terms of buys. I will be DCAing in here and there, but overall we're going to be taking more of a wait and see. And if we look here again on the ICP chart, there's nothing to indicate that this is not going to continue to go down. So I might be buying a little bit here and there, but until we start to see a little bit of a bottoming out, that's ideally and kind of mainly what I'm looking for. So maybe if we start to break this trend line, that would be one indicator. Maybe if we come back and settle back on this $5 range, that could be another indicator. There's a lot of different things I think we could start to see. Like, we don't even necessarily, in my mind, need to see complete strength from the chart. We just need to see something other than complete weakness. And currently that, I think, is what we are seeing. So anyway, that's kind of how I'm looking at kind of the altcoin market, ICP in general, or specifically. There's a lot of different things kind of going on within the market. Overall, I think long term, I have conviction in ICP. I'm very confident that over a long enough period of time, we hopefully will get to see kind of the benefits and the value of ICP that they are creating. It's just going to take time. And that's very, very common, very, very standard for anything that's not a, get rich quick narrative, kind of fugazi type of thing. So not particularly worried there. Hopefully you did find the information in this video useful though. If you did, a like and a subscribe really, really does help. If you have any comments, questions, thoughts, anything like that, just drop them in the comment section below. I do try to read and respond to all of those. So if you have anything that you want me to see, that'd be a great way to do so. So anyway, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.